Coping with Tre Tailor, giving you info and advice to help you thrive and survive in life, because we'll always be coping with something. Coping.
Dyana Williams is a radio and music industry icon working over 4 decades, count them, 1, 2, 3, 4 in the industry. Among her many accolades, she was the first African-American Latina woman rock DJ at WRQK in New York City and has done voiceover work for a little bit of everyone, everywhere, including the Unsung series on TV One. And again, that's just a few of her numerous accolades. In the 90s, she launched the Association of African-American Music Foundation to promote and preserve Black music and co-wrote House Concurrent Bill 509 to establish June as Black Music Month. She's a journalist, community activist, documentarian, and artist development and media coach through her company, Influence Entertainment. She is a personal mentor of mine and has always been so gracious, so beautiful, so helpful to me personally and professionally. And I cannot tell you how much of an honor it is to interview and talk to Dyana Williams. Thank you,
Dyana, you've forgotten how to say my name.
I know. Look, I'm making you Diana Ross, girl. Dyana.
I love the comparison.
Dee, thank you so much for joining us today. I'm so honored and so grateful for you to join us today on Coping. Thank you so much.
Pleasure, Trace. Great to be here with you.
So listen, in the intro, I said that you had an iconic 4 decades in the music industry. So tell me, what was your first influence of music?
My first influence of music was listening to the radio when I was a little girl in the Bronx. My father was a music lover, so he was always blasting the radio. We listened WABC, and we listened to WWRL, which was the Black AM station. I grew up in the Bronx and Harlem in Puerto Rico as a young lady. And so my daddy, my father's love for music, he instilled it in me. And to this day, it exists. It is still very present.
Wow. So did you always know, loving music, that you would do something in the music industry?
Not really, because at one point when I was a teenager, I wanted to be an archaeologist.
Oh, wow.
How about that? My mother enrolled me in a class at the museum, and I took classes and studied Will and Ariel Durant. And I really thought for a myriad, I love antiquities and her story and history. And so I've always been fascinated about what has transpired prior. So that was there for a minute. And then when I was about 15, 16, I wanted to be a jazz musician.
Oh,
so
wow.
There was the beginning. I studied flute with the great jazz musician, Jimmy Heath at IS 201.
Really? Oh, wow.
Program. So I wanted to be a musician. So by the time I graduated from high school, Washington Irving, and went to City College in Harlem, where I grew up as a teenager, I went in as a music major because I really thought I was going to be a jazz flautist.
Yeah.
When I took a jazz improvisation class, I quickly learned that I was talentless. Couldn't improvise, and you cannot be a jazz musician without the capacity to improvise. And so I was like, I found my flute recently. I played in one, just like C, everything in C. So that went away. But then someone had invited me to the radio station. We had a carrier current radio station that could be heard on the vicinity of the college campus. Mm-hmm. But as I mentioned, my radio station was in the heart of Harlem.
Yeah.
So it was New York radio. Started in New York radio while it was still my college radio station. It was still radio. And so I took a class, learned the rudiments, the basics, how to run the board, all of that. Got my own show.
Yeah.
And after that, I took over the radio station. I became the music director.
Wow.
I started using the student funds to bring and book artists to come to perform. So I booked everybody from Arts to Hubert Laws, all manner of people were getting gigs because I was using the college money. You pay a student fund, whatever.
Yeah.
And so that was the beginning of my entry. And at that point, I was 18.
Wow, Dee. Wow. Well, and it's interesting because you are an archaeologist. You are an archaeologist of music.
Hadn't thought of it that way, but you're right.
Yeah. I mean, you are still using your archaeological.
I'm digging.
That's right.
The history and her story. Yes.
Yeah.
Manner of speaking. Yeah.
Yeah, that's so interesting. So from there, and the other thing is, at 18, you had the talent, the knowledge, even the innovative spirit enough to utilize that college experience to get national artists. I mean, I don't know. I mean, that takes a lot of chutzpah,
Chutzpah would be part of what I possess in my character. So yeah, and from there, I was able to, my mentor was a gentleman named Van J. McDuffie. He was on the radio overnights at WRVR, which was the straight ahead jazz station. And I would be studying and doing my schoolwork. And I called him one night and I said, I listened to your show. I like what you do. I am going to be on the radio someday beyond the carrier current station.
Wow.
And I'd like to come and observe what you do. And he said, all right. And I said, but let me just explain something. I am not a go get a cup of coffee and run errands.
Right.
And I'm coming there to learn, to watch. I'm not coming there to do those things. So he did my first audition tape that got me my first paid job in radio at 96.3 WHUR in 1973. Wow. I was hired on the eve of my 19th birthday by a gentleman named Bob Nighthawk Terry, who, if you saw the movie Talk to Me, in the movie, a very infamous radio personality, but he was my boss and he gave me my first job. I was making $6,000 and I was overjoyed.
I know that's right.
Yeah, I moved to DC, didn't know anybody. Lived in a small room at the YWCA. I could reach out and touch both walls. The room was so small, but I didn't care.
Right, you were doing what you love.
I was doing what I loved and I was getting a check for it. And at the point where I moved to DC, it was Chocolate City.
Yeah.
It was Chocolate City. So I had a Black bank, a Black dentist, a Black gynecologist.
Wow.
Everything was Black, my dry cleaners. And I love that. Coming from Harlem, which of course, as you know, another Black stronghold.
Exactly.
Center of the universe for Black folks, for many. It was for me-ish. And from there, I didn't stop. So literally, when you said 40 years, I was sitting here saying 4 decades. No, it's been 5.
Wow.
It's been 5 decades because I started when I was in college.
Yeah.
17,
as a teenager.
But first professional gig at 19.
Wow, Dyana Williams joins us. We are celebrating Black Music Month, and she is the mother of Black music because she and through a lot of other people helped, but it was you who really pushed and went to the White House to say this needs to happen. We need the observance of Black Music Month. And so let's fast forward. I mean, you have had such an illustrious career, Dee. I mean, like you said, starting there and in DC and before that in New York. And I mean, you've worked because you worked your way through radio in some of the most prominent markets, New York, Philly,
and DC.
And DC, yeah.
And DC, no, absolutely. And Frankie Crocker, the Dean of Black Radio, he hired me from WHUR, literally called me on the hotline.
Wow.
He called me, he offered me a job in St. Louis. I was doing middays at this point. When I first started at WHUR, I did 8 to 11. I did evenings.
Nice, yeah.
And then he asked, then I was moved up to middays. The show was so popular, I started doing middays. And then Frankie Crocker called me and I was blown away. I picked up the hotline. It was Frankie Crocker, legendary radio person. No, the Chief Rocker, Frankie Crocker. And he offered me a job in St. Louis. Now, I was 20 when he offered me this job.
Girl.
And my mother said, okay, we're going to go to St. Louis and scope it out. And when we got to St. Louis, my mother said, and all due respect to your listeners and viewers, I love St. Louis. One of my dearest girlfriends is from the Lou. However, I came from New York And I
Right.
came from a very cultured experience in New York: theater, plays,
Right.
museums. And not to say that St. Louis doesn't have that, but when my mother and I went there, my mother was like, I think this town's a little too small and slow for you. So I went back to Mr. Crocker and I said, thank you for thinking of me. Thank you for offering me the job. However, I must pass. Then he calls me again on the hotline and offers me a job in Chicago. Now, Chicago, much like New York.
Oh, yeah.
More my speed, right, in terms of the lifestyle that I was accustomed to growing up. And I said, yeah, I'm interested in Chicago. Didn't make the trip because the owners called me and said, Mr. Crocker has offered you more money than we can afford. And so then I said to him, well, okay, I won't be going to Chicago.
Yeah.
You heard of those winters.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Then he calls me again. This time, it was WBLS, and I couldn't turn it down. Number one market for communications broadcasting in the world. I said,
yes.
And I was turning 21. I was getting ready to turn 21. So I got to go back home. I had dropped out of college, by the way. And a lot of the people that I had gone to school with were starting to graduate, and they wanted the job that I got.
Yeah.
It was a college dropout. So they were like, how did you secure this job? I was like, I went straight to working.
Yeah.
I told my mother, who, by the way, was a college professor, I said, Mama, I'll go back at some point. You know, college isn't going away.
Yeah. Yeah. It'll be here.
Yeah. I have the job and the dream job that I've always wanted. My parents were able to hear me on the radio 6 days a week. People I grew up with, my family, people I went to college with. It was super heady. And on the way to New York, when I was getting ready to go work at BLS, I fell in love. And so me getting the job happened to coincide with me meeting the man who would become the father of our 3 children,
right.
My grandson now, who is 6.5. And I'm referring to Kenny Gamble, one of the architects of the Sound of Philadelphia.
One of the architects of TSOP.
Yeah. And my co-founder in June Black Music Month. Gamble conceived of the idea of Black music. We were a couple. So we were a couple that worked together. We had a
right. Right.
So that was the beginning of my involvement with June Black Music. We're proud that we established a period of time for people to focus more on the contributions of people past, this generation, and the generations to come.
What was the reason why Gamble thought that it should be a Black Music Month? What did he say to you?
Yes, he had gone to Nashville, Tennessee, and observed what the Country Music Association was doing in Nashville. They actually took a whole city and turned it into a very profitable location region based on country music. So how clever. So he came back to Philly and said, we need to establish a similar type of entity.
Right.
And when he created the Black Music Association with some other notable individuals. And, his thing was economics. We had a campaign in the Black Music Association at one point that said, Black music is green. And this we're talking the 70s now, because even then, Gamble recognized what we should all recognize is that Black music is a multi-billion-dollar business.
Oh, it is.
Good. We fall in love to it. We break up to it. We party, family gatherings, celebrations, everything. There's Black music for every occasion. And we consume copious amounts of Black music, whether we recognize it or not, from the moment we wake up till we go to sleep. TV commercials selling us soap, detergent, cereal, you name it, insurance. Black music is at the core of Madison Avenue, using this music to engage people in product purchasing.
All people, not just Black and brown people.
Everybody, every single body. But that was the inspiration. He had gone to Nashville, came back and said, we need to do this for the Black music business. And that was the birth of the Black Music Association, which no longer is in existence. But from it came June Black Music Month. And again, his idea, because the Country Music Association, I want to say October, I'm not sure, they had a month. And he was like, well, we should have a month.
Right. They got a month. We should have a month.
Yeah. And of course, we had Black History Month, but 28 days. Right. Anyway, A lot of people are like, why do we need a Black Music Month? What's the point? What's the purpose? Well, as I mentioned earlier, it's an opportunity for us in a concentrated period of time to celebrate the songwriters, producers, the radio personalities, the hosts, the record executives, the managers, the retailers, the consumers. And that's everybody. You have a pulse, a heartbeat. Black music is for you. It is of us, for all of us, not just for the consumption of Black people. So that's what happened with Black Music Month. And that is not to say that we do not continue to celebrate Black music beyond June.
Absolutely.
Every day should be a celebration and a recognition. But this is that concentrated month to read books to your grandchildren about your favorite musicians, to buy the merch or the music, live performances. Now with COVID dying down, with people getting vaccinated, we can go out and hear live music again. We can go out and support musicians at concerts and clubs and different venues. So that's what we do during June Black Music Month.
So what is the process of making a day, a month, a law? Because I know there was a little controversy, a little something about Jimmy Carter, but then it actually ended up with President Clinton. What happened there?
Great question. So 1979, June 7th, was the first June Black Music Month celebration on the lawn of the White House, the South Lawn. And it was hosted by President Jimmy Carter and his wife, Rosalind. And Clarence Avant, the godfather, was involved in asking the Carter administration to host this event for over 200 members of the music industry and the Black Music Association. So President Jimmy Carter, we have video of it, actually, we have film where he gets up and he says, June is Black Music Month. But unfortunately, what the president did not do, he didn't sign a proclamation.
He just said it.
He said it. We hosted this it was the inaugural Black Music Month event a year after the BMA was established. But the BMA and the Black music industry continued to celebrate it. Record companies, artists, what have you. And as the years went on, I established the International Association of African American Music Foundation. And we were doing music conferences during June Music Month, the first week of June. So I wrote President Clinton and asked him to host a similar reception as Jimmy Carter had done. And the White House came back and said, we've gone into the archives back to 79, and we do see and hear where the president said June is Black Music Month. But because he didn't do the proclamation, from our position, we're not issuing proclamations. We're not doing that unless you go to Congress and get legislation.
Wow.
Get it done there, and then come back to us, and we'll open the doors. We'll have you meet the president. All of that took me a couple of years of lobbying. I'm a girl from the Bronx and Harlem. I don't know anything about lobbying, but I love it. I'm passionate about Black culture, people, and music. So knocking on people's doors, I became a letter writing something. I enlisted the support of a Republican senator, Arlen Specter from Pennsylvania, who wrote the president on my behalf to get June Black Music Month, and also Congressman Shaka Fatah from Philadelphia. So through Shaka actually introduced the legislation. I found an email the other day when it went through, and it was like 386-0. It was unanimous in the House of Representatives. And so that was enough for me then to go back to the White House and say, okay, I did what you asked me to. I got the legislation. I even wrote the legislation. Congressman Fatah's office put the whereas and put it in form, but I wrote the language. And then the White House said, come on through. And I was invited to a private meeting in the Oval Office with President Bill I started to say Bill Carter.
Bill Clinton. Yeah.
Bill Clinton. That was a very heady moment for me, like a young Black woman, to be able to do something like that. It's actually one of the significant things I've done in my life. Not something that I was prepared for, but I then later realized I was a lobbyist.
Right. Yes.
And for Black culture.
You were an archaeologist.
I was an archaeologist.
You were an archaeologist, Dee.
Archaeologist. Yes.
Because you were digging. You had to dig and find and search.
Sure did. And again, the passion is what drove me, the desire to see this happen, to get Black music respect that it deserves. And also, remind people it's not just beautiful music that you can tap your toes and your head and snap your fingers and dance to. It is a big business. It's one of America's greatest exports around the planet and to the galaxies.
Yes.
The music is bouncing off in all over. Who knows where it is? Okay. I could just see, look, Sun Ra, George Clinton, the mother.
Oh, girl, yes. Yes.
Notice, Trey, and some of your viewers, listeners will get as well. This morning on my remote, I have Xfinity, Comcast. I said Black Music Month. They have a whole thing. Apple, Spotify, Tidal, all of the DSPs celebrate June Black Music Month. Most of the record companies have special campaigns celebrating the artist on their roster and Black Music Month. So it's corporations, it's entities, all manner, and people send me, I get emails, people will send me, look who's celebrating Black Music Month. And events all over the country in communities.
Computers, they're a part of our everyday lives. But when they're not working, they're an everyday problem. So call Computers Unique, your everyday solution. 803-351-5821. Is your computer running slow? Won't turn on? Do you need a screen replaced? Or maybe you just need another computer? Well, Computers Unique is your one-stop shop for all your computer needs. They have a wide variety of new and pre-owned PCs, Macs, and tablets. So call Computers Unique, Dutch Square Mall. 803-351-5821. 803-351-5821.
Hi, I'm Tre Tailor, and we're always coping with something, but God is always with us. Here's the devotional for today. I love you, God says, for who you are, not for what you do. Man, that's good. Many voices vie for control of your mind, especially when you sit in silence. You must learn to discern what is my voice and what is not. Ask my spirit to give you this discernment. Walk closely with me in each moment, listening for my directions and enjoying my companionship. Refuse to let other voices tie you up in knots. My sheep know my voice and follow me wherever I lead, because I'm always there. That's your devotion for today. I'm Tre Tailor.
Coping, find peace of mind to survive through whatever. Coping, learning the way that we thrive all together. Coping, finding out what's real. Coping, we can heal, we can heal, we can heal. Coping with stress, coping with strife, bringing hope for success, for improving our life. Coping beyond hoping to do more than survive. Ways to live a healthy life. Coping and promoting, learning what you can do. 6 ways to a better you. Coping, find peace of mind to survive